So we're going to talk about Luka for a bit, and then we're going to talk about the Mavericks as a whole. So Luka's shooting, specifically his three-point shooting, he's shooting 26% on threes this year, on 7 a game. For his career, he's at 32% on 8 a game. He loves his step backs, as we know. And it's starting to get to the point where it's even beginning to bring down how amazing he is at finishing around the basket. His true shooting is 56%, which is good, but it's honestly not amazing for a guy who handles the ball as much as Luka does. Should also say he is, a 74% free throw shooter, which, I mean, look, 74% on 8 free throws a game, that's pretty good, but yeah, that could be better as well. Again, he's so good at all the stuff around the rim. I mean, the Mavs offense has been basically the same thing this year in terms of style, not in terms of effectiveness. Their three-point shooting has been a little down. Their second chance points have been way down. You would hope that Porzingis could help with both of those things. But it's still mainly Luka pick and roll. I mean, you just watch the way that the guy maneuvers past defenders, gets him on his back, and it's the Luka Doncic thing. I mean, he's still a great player at the end of all this, but I don't think, as of right now, he has been maximizing his efficiency given these threes. The one thing that I noticed with Luka's shot is that there's a lot of motion between his starting point and getting to his release point, and maybe with that, he gets kind of misaligned or whatever. Now, I would say the Mavs should just let Luka shoot through this, but this has been the only negative trend with him in his career so far. You could say the defense as well, but they've managed to not have that really be a problem. Just, you hide him on certain guys. And I mean, he's a big dude. He's not as bad defensively as a critic of his might suggest he is. But the three-point shooting is a little more real to me. We'll just see what ends up being with all that. If we can think about the Mavs just as a whole now. So again, their offense has been a little worse. I think some of that is bad luck. Their style is basically the same. They didn't have Porzingis. They also don't have Seth Curry now, which they knew what they were doing with that. They said, we need a little bit more wing defense, so we're going to go with Josh Richardson, and we're going to lose out on one of the best shooters in the league, and that's just how it goes. It should be said, they almost beat the Bucks last night with most of their good defensive players not in the game. Speaking of their defense, it's been great. They're actually like second in defensive rating. Some of that is the Clippers blowout, and when I say that they've had bad luck with some of their shooting performances in some of the games this year, you can also say they've had a lot of good luck with opponent shooting performances. One is the Clippers game. There was a Raptors game where the Raptors shot really poorly from 3. I think both of those are going to end up falling to normalcy by the time we're like halfway into the season or whatever. If you look at the shots that they're willing to give up, it is a bit of a Bucks-ish defense. They're towards the top of the league in opponent mid-range attempts per game, dropping on pick and rolls, loading up into the paint, that sort of stuff. I still think it's going to end up being great on offense, okay on defense. And I think when you look at the sort of culture clash between Luka and Porzingis, that to me is the difference between these guys being good, very good, and great. The other thing would be if they can make a move for another really good player. And also, Porzingis needs to be healthy for all of this to happen, and that's still a pretty big question. That's my biggest fear with this team still. So anyway, Porzingis likes these 14-foot post-up things. Luka wants to run pick and roll with shooters around him. To be fair, Porzingis does fit into that. I mean, the guy has attempted, 7 or 8 threes already in the 2 games, as in per game. And he had a noticeable uptick in his three-point attempt since he came to Dallas. So he does fit into that, but it's also like he doesn't just want to be a spot shooter, and you're also not maximizing him by just putting him in the corner all the time. However, the reason it remains awkward is because Porzingis is not as good on these post-ups as he sometimes looks. I mean, his mid-range percentages, which is usually where he ends up shooting on these types of post-ups, I mean, they're good. They're not amazing. He's in the 40s, but I feel like he needs to get closer to 50% on those, especially if he's taking these, 13-foot turnarounds over, a lot of the time, 6'7" dudes. And even then, there's some defenders who play above their height, especially on post defense. So like Marcus Smart, Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. There's other guys if you think hard enough about it. Porzingis will sometimes have actual trouble against those guys, like getting into position and how comfortable is he when he takes the shot. And usually when you're facing a good team, you're facing more of those types of guys. So that's a bit of an awkward thing. Either Porzingis has to become really amazing at those shots, or they have to lean more into like Luka, Porzingis pick and rolls and pick and pops, I guess. And for those to work, it would help if Porzingis could play center. But given his injury stuff and also just how thin the guy is, I don't know if that's the best thing. I mean, you can definitely have your Porzingis at center lineups in stretches, but just all the time, I don't know. I mean, you look at last year, the majority of Porzingis' minutes were spent with either Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell. That said, there were still some lineups where he was the lone big guy, and there was one in particular that played about 160 minutes, and it was actually a positive. So if you want to take that as a good sign, then okay. If we can think about their defense, I mean, you'd hope that a healthy Porzingis could make a difference there. If anything, it would just clean up their opponent's second chance points, which have not been so good to open up this season. Their opponent fast break points have been good. I do think there's a question about Porzingis defending wing players, similar to my Sabonis having to do it thing for the Pacers. So we'll see with that one. It's kind of awkward because I think Porzingis can be a very good rim protector, but I don't know if he can just play center and just be physical with other big guys like that, you know? But in terms of the personnel overall, I mean, you got James Johnson, unless they end up trading him for something, when you got his $16 million expiring, which you could pair up with a draft pick or something to get somebody, but they also don't really have picks to move until 2026. Maybe they're willing to trade a pick that far out. We'll have to see. But still, Johnson's a good defender. You got Richardson. Dwight Powell has not been as good to open up this season. We'll see there. Kleba is good. Dorian Finney-Smith is good. They made the Richardson-Seth Curry swap. We'll see if Josh Green gets more minutes. Carlisle's a good defensive coach. It's all pretty good. I still think they might need a real, great wing defender. There's also a chance that it's too difficult to get one of those guys, and you might just have to make it work with what you have. And again, what they have is pretty good. I do think they can be, once again, a mid-tier defense. Maybe they can get in on the PJ Tucker thing if that's going to be real. At the same time, you could argue, if James Johnson was going to be the guy moving, James Johnson might be better than 35-year-old PJ Tucker. Besides that, I don't really know. I mean, I know there's this Andre Drummond thing, and Rick Carlisle has proven to really like run, jump, and dunk centers. I mean, since he had Tyson Chandler, there was the whole DeAndre Jordan thing, there was the Nerlens Noel thing. They gave Dwight Powell a nice contract. Maybe he'd feel similar to Andre Drummond. And given that the Cavs just traded for Jared Allen, maybe they're already kind of looking at moving on from Drummond. Maybe they view it as we can move him now while his value is at its highest. But yeah, that's what I got. I think if Porzingis is going to be awesome, then Dallas has a real chance to be the second best team in the West. If he's not going to be awesome, they're just another team in there. And I expect some of these weird shooting numbers that they have going for them and against them to eventually even out. And we'll see if the trading of Seth Curry for Richardson ended up being the thing they really needed on defense. And also, we'll see once again if Luka just stops taking all these contested threes or if they just simply start going in a little bit more. I actually forgot that was the premise of this video. But yeah.